Okay. I want to thank you again for that interesting presentation. And let's continue on with Commission Regulation. Commission Regulation 0707, Amendment number 4. Kevin Heinsberg.
Kevin Lansford, Department of Wildlife. Actually, if I'd have been smarter and quicker at the last commission meeting, I would have had whoever motioned to pass this amend their motion, because we had a change that we had worked on with the Trappers Association. So this is just to make sure that we approve, we're all on the same thing that needs to be approved, and this is the pelt ceiling dates. And since then, the Nevada Trappers Association canceled their Ely sale, so we'll take that off the list too. But we spoke about the second Tuesday in January, last Monday in February. Last Monday in February, the wording on the ones that you guys had saw was not quite correct. So in order just to clean this up, this is the newest correct version. The Trappers Association, the fur bearer biologist, and myself, this is the correct version.
Why did they cancel?
They didn't, I don't think they had the Ely sale this last year either, did they? They didn't have the Ely sale this last year. It's just a number of pelts and participation by trappers in that part of the country. They felt the Fallon sale would cover everybody, so they've only had that sale once or twice in the last decade. And they always put it on the agenda for potential.
Any questions from the commission? Is now clear to the public for any questions? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. What's your flavor? Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the Bobcat pelt ceiling dates as presented to us.
As amended?
As presented today, and with the amendment.
Do we have a second to that motion? Seconded by Commissioner Wallace. We have a motion to approve these Bobcat pelt ceiling dates as amended, and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All for the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is Commission Regulation 0908. Craig Mortimer.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, I work for the Game Division. My name is Craig Mortimer, and I'm the staff biologist for migratory game bird programs. And I'm here to present to you today our recommendations for Commission Regulation 0908, the waterfowl and migratory game bird seasons for the 2009-2010 season. We had circulated preliminary recommendations within your commission support material, which also went out to the county advisory boards back in July. And at that time, you observed a number of different alternatives that were being considered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on behalf of the Department of the Interior. And those are no longer viable. I should backtrack. I should say that final selections of the frameworks for duck seasons have been determined, and I have circulated, or I have asked Suzanne to circulate earlier in the week a commission review draft of the regulations, and I'm hoping all of you have that in front of you now. There's a stack of them that were out there. They're right here, right now. So the bottom, I would ask that you check the bottom of your paperwork to make sure that it says commission review draft right here. And that's what we're going to be working on. Anything that says preliminary on it, please discard it.
Discard it?
Yes, what's in your commission?
Oh, it's in the packet. All right. Very back of the packet. That's the very back of the thick thing. Gotcha.
And the reason for all this confusion is that in April of every year, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is required to circulate within the Federal Register their preliminary recommendations for the season frameworks for waterfowl harvest regulations based upon 3 different alternatives, that being the liberal, the moderate, and the restrictive alternatives. And at the time, those alternatives have not been chosen because all the data that determines the status of waterfowl has not yet been collected and analyzed. Yet they have to put those out for public comment at that time in April. Basically, what you saw in your commission support material were those preliminary recommendations for the 3 harvest management approaches. And subsequent to that time, on July 24th, the second version of the Federal Register was published. This is immediately after the 4 flyway councils had the opportunity to meet and discuss it. And the recommendations of the 4 councils were signaled to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and that was published on the Federal Register on July 24th. Obviously, that's subsequent to the time that your commission support material was sent out. Then later, just a few days after that publication of the Federal Register, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's Regulations Committee met with representatives of all 4 flyways and scientists within the U.S. Department of Interior's Fish and Wildlife Service to go over final regulations for duck seasons, and it was determined that the data supported, and I should say the status of waterfowl within the continent supported a liberal framework package for regulations for this year, and subsequent to that, made an alteration to our Commission Regulation 0908, making it this Commission review draft. Additionally, the Department of Wildlife has held these things called the Nevada Waterfowl Summit for the last 5 years. This is the 5th year that we had it. It is a supplementary opportunity to gather input from specific users, waterfowl themselves. It's not meant to detract from the County Advisory Board process whatsoever. It's just an opportunity to present a great amount of detail to these user groups. These are meetings that are typically 5 hours long, have a lot of paperwork, a lot of presentations, and a lot of information, in which it gives us the opportunity to take input from waterfowlers in order to craft this, the Commission review draft, for you guys to consider today. Those were done last weekend, one in Las Vegas, following the recommendations of Commissioner Macbeth and Commissioner Lurie last year. We held one in Las Vegas this year, and then the next day, this would be last Sunday, we held another one at the Canvasback Gun Club in Stillwater, Nevada. That's just outside of Fallon. Both of them were well attended. I was very pleased with the turnout, and we were able to gather quite a bit of input. And you'll see that there are there's not that many changes. There are a handful of changes on your Commission review draft as compared to the one that was circulated within your support material. So with all that background information, I guess we can talk about the actual recommendations themselves. And the first recommendation that we have is the Special Youth Waterfowl Hunt. For those of you that don't know, the state of Nevada, under the rules of under federal rule, states are allowed to divide up their states into zones for which these frameworks can be applied. And our state is divided into 2 different zones. One is the Clark and Lincoln County zone. The other zone is the rest of state zone. This is more valuable at a time when we had shorter seasons and we were allowed to open the northern zone earlier in the year and the southern zone later in the year. But we have had 107-day long seasons since 1997, so the real value of those 2 zones is only, at this point in time, really only limited to selecting different youth hunt days for both northern and southern zones. Were we to go to a shorter season, perhaps next year or in subsequent years, then the dividing up the state into these 2 zones will be valuable in, once again, shifting the season dates appropriate to the arrival of migratory birds. Youth waterfowl hunt for the northern zone is recommended to be for the 2009-2010 season is October 3rd, 2009. For those of you that downloaded the Commission review draft that Suzanne circulated on Monday, we subsequently caught an error in the southern zone. it should read 2010 season. Those of you that just picked up paper copies, you can see that. But as a matter of record, Mr. Chairman, if we can make sure that that is the 2010 season, because the Southern Zone selects to have their youth hunt subsequent to the conclusion of the general hunt.
What were the specific dates?
Specific date for the Southern Zone is February 13th and February 14th. Under the regulations, states may select hunting seasons for youth 14 days prior to, or 14 days up to 14 days after the conclusion of the general season. This year, the Southern Nevada folks provided some excellent input, and they selected a season that would occur 2 weeks after the conclusion of the duck hunt in Southern Nevada, that being the general duck hunt. And kids that participated in the youth waterfowl hunt are allowed to shoot anything that's available within the waterfowl seasons and coot and moorhen seasons as well.
How come it's 2 days in the south and only 1 day is in the north?
We have traditionally recommended as an agency 2 days, 2 consecutive days for the youth hunt in the northern zone. But input from the northern zone, waterfowlers in the northern zone has traditionally been and consistently been for a single day rather than 2 days. They can have 2 days, but most of the folks in the northern zone really would rather have only a single day. There's no supportive data to say that there's a lot of participation in that second day. We do have some information from down south where the second day does have participation, but certainly not as much as the first day. Nevertheless, the Southern Nevada folks appreciate the value of the youth hunt day, and they consistently select the 2 days.
Thank you.
Chairman, just a further bit of clarification is that what the North is doing is they're taking, there's a total of 107 days, is that right?
That's correct.
And so the South takes 2 of those 107 days and allocates them to the youth hunt, whereas the northern part wants the regular hunt to have that additional day. So it's moving it from one, we're not losing a day of the 107.
We just put it in at the regular. Thank you. Go on.
Does anybody have any questions about the youth hunt? Okay, we'll move on to the general
We'll
season.
have public comment after.
Okay, thank you. Now, for ducks and mergansers, the northern zone has been recommended. This is following input gathered by the summit meeting that we had last Sunday at Canvasback Gun Club. This differs from the recommendation that you saw within the commission support material that was circulated earlier. We're recommending an October 17th to January 30th season. January 30th is a Saturday, and as Commissioner McBeth just pointed out, the federal rule only allows a total of 107 days for duck hunting. Therefore, any days allocated to youth hunts must be subtracted from that general season. For the southern zone, except for the Moapa Valley portion of Overton Wildlife Management Area, it is the exact same opening date of October 17th. Once again, because 2 days are allocated for youth, it closes on Friday, January 29th. Continuing on, it's after gathering input from the Southern Nevada sportsmen, Moapa Valley portion of Overton Wildlife Management Area has been recommended to open 2 weeks after the earliest allowable season if backtracked from the last day possible. Therefore, it is recommended to open on Saturday, October 31st, and conclude on January 29th. That was a voluntary recommendation from the group, which was it was a split decision, but it was heavily favorable towards this decision to cut off the first 2 weeks of the duck hunt. That actually only translates into 7 hunt days, because Overton Wildlife Management Area is only open on every other day during the duck season. So they voluntarily decided to cut 7 days off of that season for the Moapa Valley, only the Moapa Valley portion of the Overton Wildlife Management Area. There are other portions of the Overton Management Area that remain open from October 17th through January 29th. Some interesting things about the limit this year. The pintail limit was increased to 2. It's been 1 for quite some time, and we have had partial seasons for pintails The performance of that population greatly increased this year because of high precipitation values that were collected within the mid-continent region of our continent. They are prairie pothole nesting birds, and because the prairie potholes were numerous and abundant this year, pintail numbers subsequently increased in number. Therefore, the pintail harvest strategy allows us to have 2 pintails this year. We're back to having a canvasback season this year after not having one last year. Once again, the numbers for canvasback improved considerably this year, thus we can afford to have a canvasback season. The only glitch in this thing is the scaup season. Greater and lesser scaup are decreasing continentally. The explanation for that is still not yet resolved. Nevertheless, a harvest strategy for this species has been devised and supported by all 4 flyways. Therefore, the Pacific Flyway has selected the moderate season package is established for scaup nationwide this year. And in the Pacific Flyway, our council has selected to go with a 3-bird limit, shorter season, an 86-day season. Other flyways go for the full season and a lesser bag limit. It's an accession to our partners in the on the Pacific Coast states that do have a scaup hunting contingency, and it is their determination that if we were to have a lesser bag limit, you'd probably start to lose those people that hunt in the bays and estuaries along the coast, so California, Oregon, and Washington. So therefore, they went with the 3 scaup season. I know we don't really care about scaup here in Nevada, but I'm trying to circumvent questions that might be coming up later. Anybody have any questions on the duck and merganser season? Coots and moorhens usually run concurrent with the duck and merganser season, and as you can see, those recommendations are again concurrent with, we recommend that they run concurrent with the commission adopted seasons for the general duck. The same can be said for snipe, and we move on now to the geese. And as you can see, this year I'm recommending that we have a concurrent opener for all web-footed migratory game bird species, and that would be all geese, swans, and ducks. And the recommendation that I'm providing to you today is for an October 17th opener for both white geese and Canada geese. You'll note that the snow goose recommendation is for 10 daily, 20 in possession. That is not to, I don't want to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We don't have a lot of snow goose harvest in Nevada. Usually it's less than 500 birds a year, but they are numerous, and we do want to take advantage of the limits allowed under the framework. And then finally we come to, well, not quite finally, but we get to the falconry seasons. Because of the 107-day allocation of days for this flyway in this state, there's no special falconry season recommended that would be outside of those dates established within the framework, so it is recommended to run concurrently with the general duck season. And finally, we come to tundra swans. Actually, it's not tundra swan, it is swan, because under our regulations, the taking of trumpeter swans is allowed, but only up to 5 per year, and under the terms of the environmental assessment that allows for swan hunting in the Pacific Flyway states. Once again, I've recommended October 17th to open concurrent with duck and geese, and it runs to the last day allowed under the framework, which is the first Sunday following January 1st. And 650 swan permits are allocated to our state. So we will make these available in a drawing, as indicated within the special regulations that I'm not going to go over in detail at all. All right, I went through that as quickly as possible, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Commissioner Kevin?
What's the protocol on the 5 trumpeter? How do you track that?
Well, anybody who obtains a permit to hunt swans in our state gets a letter from us that indicates that according to state regulations, the person who is successful in harvesting swan is required to present it to us so that we can take a bill measurement. Tundra swans and trumpeter swans have different lengths of bill length, so we must make those measurements in order to stay in compliance with the environmental assessment for operational swan hunting in the Pacific Flyway. So every swan that comes in, we measure it. But We've been doing this since 1997, I might have to date that, so I think it's 1997. And in that entire time, with over 1,200 swans killed, we've only detected 2 trumpeter swans. We're trying to establish an expansion flock in Ruby Valley. It hasn't been working out. They've been there for about, I'm going to get the dates wrong on this too, but it's been a couple of decades that we're trying to get a population of trumpeter swans going in Ruby Valley, and they're just not growing much at all. We think we have a predation issue in Ruby Valley that we're addressing ourselves.
Any other questions, Commissioner McBeth?
Charlie Howell and I attended the Waterfowl Summit in the South, and I want to personally thank Craig and his staff for coming down south. And I think the way that was originally set up is we were going to move the summit down to the south, but travel restrictions and issues that arose required that there be 2 summits held. I want to say that it was a very excellent program. Craig put together this, and we went over this. We actually, he had highlighted the pertinent sections, and we actually walked through this, and it was, I learned a ton about ducks at this meeting, and how the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does their counts and everything. It was very enlightening. In addition, what Craig did was bring the project managers from the Overton Wildlife Management Area, the Keith Pittman Wildlife Management Area, and the Kirch Wildlife Management Area to the meeting, and they gave reports for their respective facilities. Those are the 3 areas, predominant areas that hunters in the South hunt. And we had an excellent turnout. We got the word out, and we had a really good turnout. I think it was somewhere between 10 and 15 people, and it was a very engaged discussion. A lot of questions. Craig did a great job of answering, as well as the project managers. And so, and in the end, we had this issue that we had to deal with on the Overton Wildlife Management Area, and we really didn't have enough input because we didn't have anybody at the CAB meeting the week before, and we'd actually come up with a different recommendation that ultimately got passed, decided by the actual participants at the Waterfowl Summit. And it was a 9-to-1 vote, so it was something that they clearly wanted. I just feel that this format that was done this year should continue every year. I think the South really appreciated Craig coming down, and the involvement and participation that the entire group had. I can tell you, when the meeting was over, there was a lot of very happy duck hunters, waterfowlers, and they made numerous comments to me that they really appreciated this particular project. So I want to say thanks to Craig, but I also want to hopefully make this a permanent program and get a waterfowl summit every year down in the South, and I think it's going to make it a lot easier for the CABs in making the recommendation, because we're done. I mean, this summit actually resolved all the issues, and there's not going to be much discussion, at least coming from the South.
I could also mention, this is a good example of the Habitat Division, which has all the wildlife areas, working with the Game Division in concert. So this is our effort to try to make sure we got cross communication and working together as a team. So
yeah, there were some very complex issues. Like there was questions with regard to issues on Kirch Wildlife Management Area, and by Dana Johnson being there, he was able to answer how they move the water around and what are the issues and how that all works. And without having somebody who is intimately knowledgeable about that, some of the waterfowlers would be left, questioning what is the department doing, and they, when the answer gets laid out, they may have a few questions, but they leave understanding that it was necessary because of whatever the issue may have been. So anyway, I just thought it was really good. Charlie, do you agree?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Any other comments? I know there's some comments from the public. Let's turn that over to the public.
Thank you very much, Ken Wellington, Elko County. We have a couple problems because when we had the preliminary report, and I understand how it was set up, but the preliminary came out with an October 10th, and I had a couple people in the audience, sportsmen that were in the audience that were avid duck hunters. And they were insistent, you know, upon the liberal dates that's set forth at the October 10th part of this. Now, I understand that it's set at the October 17th for the northern zone. But what's going to happen now is this year's going to be one of the best years for duck, according to Craig, that we're going to have in a long time. We, Elko, northeastern Nevada, is taken out of the ballgame because come to January 1st, our waters are froze over. So we've taken from a close date of the 30th of January now, the sportsmen in northeastern Nevada are going to lose that time, that extra 7 days if the date was set at the 10th of October. So we're actually, northeastern Nevada is taking out the ballgame, which is also an economic impact on our county. Because we do get duck hunters out there. I have friends that come up and we duck hunt a lot up here. But with that, I know the states are allowed to create more zones. So what I'd maybe like to see in the future is to create something for northeastern Nevada zone. And I don't know if that's possible. I know that Craig doesn't think, I don't think we have enough hunters up this direction, but I can guarantee I had sportsmen at our board meeting that were a little bit upset about that. And I know there's not much we can do about that, but with that, I mean, we could add our 2 days of juvenile hunting at for our portion of our days, because we're actually losing probably about 30 days of duck hunting for us, outside of going over to Pete's place where the warm water is. Outside that, everything else is frozen. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to put my frustration out there so you knew. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments?
Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. I would like to second Commissioner McBeth's applauding of Craig coming down. I was not able to attend the meeting for personal reasons, but I got 3 emails from people who attended that said you did an amazing job. They really appreciated what you did. They felt very educated. And then from those 3 people, other people who were duck hunters in the area that did not attend wrote and said they really appreciated what they heard from people about what you did and how you took care of things. So I just wanted to stand up here and give you personal recognition for a very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Smith, Washoe County. Craig, the first thing I want to tell you was, I know you held your summit on the last Sunday the 9th.
Correct.
And our meeting was on Monday the 10th. And Craig made a point of when I went into the room where we have our meeting in Reno, that you had the latest data there at that time for us. I mean, the next day he had it there with a note, Rick, here's what we did yesterday, here's our recommendation, they're different from this. And I see that they're a little bit different from here today. The only one, or biggest one being you had it as the 23rd ending date, and you changed it to 30 because it didn't total the amount of days. The other thing that you clarified, which came up in our meeting, doesn't really affect a lot of people, but there could be confusion when you look at ducks and mergansers and then the stop, because some people could interpret that the stop was different from the 7 and 14, and he clarified, he added that in here within the general duck limit.
Right.
So that came up in our meeting, and I'm glad to see that you added that. But I think overall you did a great job, and the Washoe County supports the recommendations of the department.
Thank you. Joe?
Jimmy Harrison, Advisory Board. We too greatly appreciated the fact that Sunday before our meeting, the meeting was held, and Doug Martin came back to our meeting and gave us stuff and showed us how a lot of the stuff is calculated, a lot of the information that Commissioner McBeth alluded to, Doug was able to share with us, and it was very enlightening because not all of us are duck hunters, and it made it sound that the scientific knowledge applied to this, and the whole staff that worked on this put an awful lot of effort into those meetings, and we definitely appreciate his efforts to present it to the sportsmen in a manner that was understandable and made sense, and especially having 2 this year, one in the south, one in the north, was
so the people down south didn't feel set upon again.
Thank you. I don't see any more public comment. I'll bring it back to the commission.
I got a question. Is there any federal regulation on how early the season can start?
The earliest season allowed under the federal frameworks, Commissioner Howard, is the Saturday closest to September 24th. So the earliest that we could open it, I believe, would be Saturday, I think, is the 25th this year. And you bring up a very salient point that supports Ken's discussions earlier, is that if we were to have a separate zone for northeastern Nevada, then we could open it much earlier than we could the rest of the state.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I understand this right, then we don't have an option unless we change the season to the entire northern zone.
The commission has lots of options as long as we remain within the frameworks established by the federal government.
That's the 107 days.
Yeah, it's 107 days total. The earliest date is September 25th. The latest date is January 31st. You can't do anything with the limits except go less.
Can we change Elko?
And we can't do that today, no. I would have to put together a proposal that would have to go through my flyway and then be accepted by the Flyway Council and forwarded by our representatives to the Service Regulations Committee. I would say that it's easy enough to make the proposal, but the reason for zoning isn't based on divvying up states for individual desires to take advantage of hunting seasons. They're usually based upon biological parameters, and it was easy enough to zone southern Nevada because of the shortened seasons allowed under the framework, and in fact the migration wasn't down. During the shorter seasons, we normally would have opened earlier in October, had a split where there was no open season, and then opened the second part of the season later. We don't have that option available to us under a 107-day long season.
Any other questions of the commissioner? If not, I'll accept the motion. Commissioner Bebb?
I would make a motion to approve Commission Regulation 0908 for the 2009-2010 seasons, bag limits, and special regulations for migratory waterfowl, as proposed.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to accept the regulation 0707, I'm sorry, 0908 waterfall regulation as proposed by the department. Do you have any questions on it? Commissioner Cavan?
I don't want to be nitpicky, but on the shooting hours, on the first one, we have a special youth waterfowl hunt. We have 1/2 hour before sunrise to sunset. Then on the rest of them, we just have 1/2. We don't have the word hour. So we just want to make sure that we're including hour and not a minute. Maybe my copy's the other one.
I got you. I see what you're saying. Goodbye.
Could be a half second.
Keep those optometrists in business. This is a constant.
You need them there.
This is a constant thing. You know, we put these out and we have a bunch of people looking them over, and it never fails that some tiny little things in the sneakers like this.
Commissioner Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess maybe I missed what you were saying, but did you say that it was not your recommendation to have different dates for the northern zone and the southern zone? Or where does the department, what do you feel?
The department stands on the season length beginning, the season length being backtracked from the last possible date allowed, which would be January 31st under the frameworks, subtracting the days for youth For the northern zone, that's January 30th, and then for the southern zone, that's January 29th. And then if you backtrack the days, it brings you to October 17th. That's normally later than we open. We normally open on the second Saturday in October. This year, we're recommending the third Saturday in October. Everybody seemed overjoyed with that kind of a recommendation. And to be honest with you, it's a selfish recommendation. We're trying to catch some pintails. We give ourselves an extra 7 days by opening it a week later.
Can I ask, Craig, so we could take a look at, talking with Ken Wellington, we could look at trying to establish next year the northeastern and get the pros and cons out. Because there's a flyway process you have to go through, which I'm a voting member of the Pacific Flyway Council.
You could be influenced by donuts or...
And they owe me a favor too. But
Yes, I'll take it upon myself to make an investigation and gather the data together and bring it before the Flyway Study Committee next year.
We have a motion and a second with no other comments. I'll call. What?
Do we want to do something about the word hour, or is that, I was just going to ask Steph. We don't need to, I just wanted to ask.
I don't think we need that.
I'm sorry, I was...
half an hour was a
Yeah, I'll fix that.
We'll fix
Thanks
that.
for pointing that out.
That shouldn't be a problem.
Doesn't need part of the motion.
Right.
Okay, all for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks again for the comment. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
You all listen.
Next item on the agenda is Commission General Regulation 364, LCD file number R20. Mark,
Mr. Chairman, Ken Mayer on the record. As I stated yesterday, Mark is, so he's not here, we had a discussion yesterday. I guess I'd ask the Health Damage Committee folks if there's anything else that we needed to discuss or we'd like to talk about prior to the vote.
As chairman of the Elk Damage Committee, I have nothing further to add to that. And unless there's any questions from the commission or the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there was quite a bit of time and thought spent in these changes. And wherever it is, our committee, from our committee standpoint, we were in agreement with the changes that are proposed. So we were covered. I'm ready to make a motion. Whenever you're ready.
turn it over to public comment. Any more public comment on this? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for any comments. No comments, then I accept the motion.
I'll move to approve the committee's recommendation on general regulation 264, that would be file number R0608 as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve CGR Commission General Regulation 364 LCD R20608 as presented. Do we have any questions on that? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, action item, commission policy 1, second reading. Are you ready for second reading? Commissioner Raines?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing further came from yesterday. I think I've managed to incorporate the couple minor suggestions into the motion. That it's the appropriate time.
Any comments from the commission? Any further comments from the public?
I'm sorry. Kim Wellington, Elko County. Did we get a hard copy of the book of corrections that might be
didn't.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you,
I can state those three then. Good. Sorry.
Rick Smith, Washoe County. I'm going to reiterate what I asked yesterday. Although the motion or the changes were minor, I would request that you table action on this until your next meeting and allow this just with the change of language and the addition of the election of officers and discussion of that you would table that, bring it back to the CAPS one more time before you make a new motion and take action on it.
Would you like to go through the changes here?
I can. Hello, Mr. Chairman. The changes.
We're still public comment.
Sorry, Scott. I would just like to second the comment that we had made also yesterday, Paul Dixon, Clark County, that when we make changes to regulations in real time here, that it would be nice to revet those, even if they are minor, back through the CABs. Plus, we got a lot of additional information that we could get to the CABs, and I think that what you would find is a lot stronger opinion of support for these things in the public record, if you so wanted, by doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, go ahead.
I would like to go ahead and second what the other two have said. Also, I would like to point out to the newer members of this commission, we were talking about different things yesterday, and it was pointed out to me that there has been nothing that has gone on or that you haven't listened to the game board and the public comment. This policy number 1 was brought up, and 100% almost of the people in the audience asked you to just drop it. And it was not done. So I would like to see it come back and have a little public comment on it where they can get in. Thank you.
One more. Ken Wallington, Elko County, for the record. Yeah, we could take this back to the CAPS because we didn't support these at the time, but now having the understanding and looking through the changes, it would be probably easier for me to present to my board and to sell this to them. Just a thought.
They were just minor changes, I think. But go ahead and read the changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I mean, I could go back to the boards again, but we've already had several committee meetings on this. It's come before the commission. The one that was voted to, well, said to go back was a dramatically different version of number 1. It'd be hard to even consider it to be similar. There's a few very similar lines, but most of it's totally different. The changes we'll be proposing here to the printed version would be on Commission Policy 1, under purpose would be the 5th line, which is in green on my copy, begins commission, and simply strike the next 2 words, offers to, continue formally, recognize, and add an S at that, which would recognizes, so that sentence would then read, commission formally recognizes individuals, and continue on as written. Then the next change would be under procedure, section 1, first sentence at the end of that, where the goat says July 1st of each year, inserting its first order of business will be the election of officers, period, and capital T, the commission shall select. Then would be under Commission Policy 3, procedure, second line, and begins their authority based on, their board authority based on information presented, striking during, inserting for, continuing as written. So it will read. So it will read.
This is on Policy 3.
Policy 3, procedures, second line, first paragraph. That would then read, their authority based on information presented for the hearing only as prescribed. Only word change, striking during, inserting for.
That was in policy 3 or 4?
3. Under procedure, first paragraph, second line.
That was based on some of the legal advice we had.
Then, Commission Policy 4, Procedure. On the third grouping there, which begins since NRS 501.260. If we go down to the third line of that, the end of it, where it says bag limits, strike the word "and." After hours, insert "and regulations." So that would then read, to the Commission for seasons, bag limits, hours, and regulations.
Leaving and regulations
Leave-
in?
Yes.
Leaving out special.
Leaving out.
Adding the words "and regulations."
Okay.
So when
Leaving
they,
it in, not striking it.
right. So it would read as follows, that portion. Commission for seasons, bag limits, hours, and regulations. Individuals are encouraged to initiate.
Okay, thank you.
That was all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Did everybody get that? Does any commissioner have any comments on that? Commissioner
I'm actually in favor of every one of the amendments that have been stated. But with regard to Policy 1, because of the issue of the change that was not vetted by the cabs, I would like to see, consistent with the request of the cabs, that this policy go back one more time to the cabs before it comes to the commission and is finalized.
Any other Commissioner DePerl?
Yes, sir. The changes that have been made are for the most part ministerial. We could send this thing back and then there's a misplaced period someplace and we can play this out for 5 or 6 meetings. The changes that are here in several areas are in compliance with adding the provisions of a bill that was passed during this last session. So we really have no choice in adopting that language. So the only real change to Commission Policy number 1 is the addition of the first order of business for the election of officers. As I stated yesterday, in the past, that action item has been the first item on the agenda. It was only this year and the past several years that I can remember in which it was in some other position. I would also point out that the cabs themselves, at least the ones I've read, have held theirs, always had theirs as the first item of business.
But we've also taken public comment.
Well, we've had plenty of public comment. On that, I'm ready to make an offer.
No other
Motion.
questions?
Before you have it, can I read this sentence in the question here so that we've captured it correctly? Scott, it's supposed to say, during this first regular scheduled meeting following July 1 of each year, election of officers shall be the first order of business, period. Correct?
Well, you had worded a little different. The first order of business would be election of officers.
That's how
That
was how we had it written, yes.
It's the same thing, but the first order, I have here, the first order of business would be the election of officers, period.
Period. First order of business will be the election of officers, period. Then begin a new sentence.
Okay, let's read through it, because we keep going back and forth between shall and will, and
Okay.
one more time. Let's go to Scott.
July 1st of each year, the first order of business will be the election of officers, period.
Everybody get that change? Anybody want to do a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt Commission Policy number 1, Policy number 3, and Commission Policy number 4.
We have a second then?
I'll second that. We want to state with these amendments as
With
written.
With the amendments that have been discussed here.
To discuss.
We'll second with the amendments, yes.
We have a motion to approve policy 1, policy 3, and policy 4 as corrected today. And a second.
Mr.
Question?
Chairman, I just have a comment. I just want the cast to know that I hear what you're saying here, but we have worked on these for 4 months, and they've come before us, and they keep going back, and they keep coming back. And I think that we're down to the point where we're making small changes here. And I think I'm ready to make a vote on it and to move on to the next step.
Hearing no other questions, I'll call for the motion. All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Who opposed? We had 2 opposed. Motion passes.
And just for the record, it was a very limited nay. I actually agree with all of them, I think.
Limited nay, I don't understand.
I think if you read Robert's Rules of Order, that's
such a thing. I guess my only position is that it would have given the gaps an opportunity to maybe add additional language with regard to the one item, and so that was the only opportunity I was given. But as to everything that's there, I just want to make sure everybody understands that I'm okay with the language that is here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
The
the fact of the matter is that these can be addressed at any time. So once they're adopted, if they want to take a look at it, make recommendations on it, that can be done at any time. You have not shut out that potential. But at some point in time, you have to vote.
Thank you. Now I'm going to return to the 2 items left on the agenda from yesterday. First one would be department activities, leadership, team notes, secretary and mayor.
As usual, certainly interested in your input with the new commissioners. We have a Monday afternoon leadership team meeting. We hold from the division chiefs and the director staff. And just we cover the gamut, kind of what's going on and try to resolve issues. We memorialize that in minutes and depending on how many minutes we get back up, to try to get them out to you as quickly as possible. And my preference would be to, by the week following, we'd have be 1 week behind. And that way, we chose to do that because what we were having to do when I first got here was to do a report. It was quite lengthy and it was an added workload to the staff. When we thought, well, let's just start getting this out more real time so you can know what's going on. So you'll start receiving those, and you'll have a better flavor of what's going on in the department on a weekly basis. If there's any suggestions or ideas or conclusions, we'd certainly be open to that. We also send that to everybody. One of the things I wanted to do is demystifies the department and get that out in the hands of our own folks have it. But they had, when I first here 3 or 4 months down the road, I had an email from one of the employees that they learned more about the department in 3 months than they knew in 20 years. So, and as well as anybody that wants it, constituents would like that thing as well. So, any ideas to improve it, certainly open to that.
It's been really rewarding. I think you'll find it real enlightening on what's going on. The new commissioner, so you'll be emailing to them too?
Yes, yes. And one of the things we're trying to do is that to cut off questions later on. I mean, you might go, well, I wonder what INDA's doing on, water rights. And so you'll see what we're doing as we're getting work those various issues. So, and we're not going to catch everything. We'll certainly bring those up and we'll provide answers.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Heritage Committee, Commissioner Kaplan.
The Heritage Committee met last Thursday. We did a telephonic meeting with the 2 members. Commissioner Morai was in Elko, and we did have availability for public in Elko, but we didn't have any participation. And Commissioner Rain was in Eureka. In Reno, we had a half dozen people from the public show up. The main function of the meeting, to give you some background, was at the February meeting, we had a petition from John Zenz to look at reducing the PIW David Bighorn tags from 3 down to 1. During that petition process, we basically negotiated with Mr. Zenz to withdraw his petition, and the issue was referred to the Heritage Committee, adding auction tag input, because we now have, at this point in time, we have 5 bighorn sheep tags that can actually are out there. They can hunt anywhere in the state, and they could actually all be taken in one area. So the Heritage Committee was charged with evaluating the situation. We had staff come in, and Mike Cox from the Game Division, and he basically told us that, yeah, we're having some biological impact that he has to adjust for the next year. And on the other hand, we're having some sociological impacts because we have people that have waited 10, 12, 15 years to draw dead sheep tags. By the time they get in there, there's a possibility that some of the larger rams have been removed, and it's reducing their opportunities. So we basically had a roundtable discussion with Mr. Zenz was there, Tim Humes was there, Mel Belding, and Judy. I thought we had a real good discussion, but it was just a starting point to kind of get the issues out on the table. And what I'd like to do is kind of put the cabs on notice that we're trying to gather information, and staff is going to put together some background information for us biologically, and some of the financial information from what PIWs are doing. And the next phase of this thing is we're going to have possibly silver state tags thrown in, and ultimately possibly green tags thrown in. So we have a potential for even more tags if we left 3 in the PIW and we added a silver state and we added a green tag. So the problem is going to potentially grow. So basically, we didn't take any formal action, but what we decided to do was, I'm working with staff to get some basic background information, get it to the cabs, and we kind of decided, well, we're not going to tell you what we think, we're just going to give you the information and let you guys brainstorm like we did. We brainstormed. Let you guys brainstorm on your own. We've got a lot of sheep people down in Las Vegas that didn't get to participate. Hopefully maybe the cabs can get a hold of the key people in Las Vegas that are diehard sheep people, and get their heads together and discuss and send your input back to the Heritage Committee. But what I'd like to do is let's not wait till it goes to a commission agenda. Just a heads up to the cabs. Let's get it on your agenda for the next time. We'll get you the background information. As soon as we get you the background information, get it on your agenda. Try and get some feedback going so that when we have another Heritage meeting, and we haven't set one yet, we're going to set it based on when we get the information from cabs and start getting some feedback. We'll have another Heritage meeting and try and come up with some recommendations for the commission for season settings and quota settings for in the beginning of next year. So we think, thinking out loud, most of the solutions, or at least the easiest solutions, are to take care of it at the season setting and quota setting level. So I'm hoping that we'll have some recommendations that won't be So it won't take years to implement, and we can get some resolution to the problem or the perceived problem on the social end of it, and maybe some relief to Mike Cox on the biological end of it also. So that's kind of where we're at. We just had that was our only agenda item. So if I can answer any questions, or if anybody's interested more, just give me a call, or any of the cabs, if you have any questions, I'm available.
Any commission questions of Mr. Chapman? If not, anybody in the audience? You got to step up.
Thank you. Judy Charon from Reno. I just wanted to say I did have the pleasure to attend that meeting, and Mr. Cabin, that was one of the most informative workshops I have ever attended. Maureen really enlightened this on some of the things with the PIW, that they're flexible within statute, that you wouldn't have to change statute, that the dates and the quotas for that, for the PIW tags, wouldn't take a statute change, that they're flexible the way that's written. So with the tags that are coming in, the PIW, the Heritage, possibly the Silver State or the Dream tags in the future, it all can be worked out there. But I want to thank you listening, the people that were there, all had different inputs to that, and taking it back to the counties rather than make a recommendation for them to see what we originally saw and heard from Maureen and people giving in. I think, it'll be a broad box of options that come forward, and I think you did an excellent job, Mr. Captain. I want to say thank you.
Anybody else in the commission? Mr. Furrow?
I should have brought it up under emerging items, so can I make some recommendations for the future at this point? Or you want?
What's, I don't know what's your?
A recommendation for items for the agenda for the future.
That's the next item of business.
I don't have that here.
It's on the agenda.
Mine's a
Number
future
16?
commission.
You don't have number 16?
That shows future commission.
Anybody have any other questions on Commissioner Cavan's report? If not, we'll go to the next agenda item, future commission meeting.
Well, as the agenda says, the next meeting is scheduled for September 25th and 6th in Vegas. Talk about agenda items. We do not have, for the new commissioners, I voted to have national holiday for all the month of October and November. Not the holidays. But we don't have commission meetings in October and November.
We used to in November, but.
That's hunting season.
That's
Right.
hunting season.
So the next one after September will be in December. But the next one is in Las Vegas.
Anybody have any problems with that?
And then we're going to be bringing the calendar, and then we'll need to establish commission meetings and locations for the coming year. We'll do that in September.
Commissioner Furrow?
Yes, I would like to see it discussed on an agenda item at some point in the future, whether it's next month or the following. Two different issues. One of them is to expand the eligibility for the youth funds from 16 to 18. Talked a little bit with Mr. Senton, and we had originally recommended the 16 because we didn't know how many there might be that apply. I'm not talking about expanding the number of tags, just expanding the age so that young people up through high school age can participate in the youth fund. So that's one suggestion. The other one is, since we have a temporary regulation, which I believe that we'll be adopting as a permanent regulation next month, we now know what wanton waste or edible meat requirements are. And I would like to see that added, I don't know whether we have anything to do with the curricula or not. I would like to see something with respect to field dressing added to the hunter safety course, so that people can see this is how you do it. Now, it doesn't have to be with animals itself, we can have charts and this sort of thing, but at least they have a basic knowledge on how to field dress an animal.
I think that is part of it.
It is part of it, but we have a very limited, we have an 8-hour course, and we're cramming everything in there, including now, we've added, careful use with OHVs, we've added additional habitat impact, and we always cover survival, and to add an additional topic that was extensive would be very difficult under our current curriculum. If you're thinking like a video, full video, or.
Come up here.
Just caution you that obviously this is a future agenda item, so we really don't want to flesh this out too much in depth and keep the comments very general.
For the record, Joe Doucette, I'm the conservation educator for the Eastern region and the hunter ed coordinator for this region. And I'm going to say that probably 95% of the classes that we hold in our region, we show a 20-minute video that takes it from beginning to end on how to field dress an animal. And so that is covered in most of the classes.
I think that ought to be made
if you just, any commissioner that wants to put them on the agenda, just make sure you just email me, and I keep a file, and then when I see the draft agenda, and I look at the time that we have, and then I always check with department, with staff, to make sure we have time to do it. So if anybody has any items on the agenda, I want to put them on, we can put Don Moley on now. No one has a problem with that, do they? That's the American way. But anyway, just get it, email me those, and then we'll do that. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I'll have a entertained motion to adjourn.
So, second,
Second. Adjourn.